Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to MovieFilm. This is episode 305. My name is Zachy Hassan. I'm here with Brian Hall. This is the day of Thanksgiving.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, Zachy.
I am thankful.
I am thankful also. I'm thankful, as always, to be sitting here chatting with you.
I am thankful to our Patreon subscribers who have made us feel so very welcomed.
Very thankful. Very thankful. Thank you.
What else are you thankful for, Brian?
I'm thankful for sunny days.
I'm thankful for baseball.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for San Dimas.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought you were doing. Yeah. Yeah. No. I'm thankful for a meal. I mean, we're recording a little ahead of Thanksgiving, so we can drop on Thanksgiving. But I'm thankful for the meal ahead and the people I'll be spending it with, and lots to be thankful for sure.
Are you thankful for blockbusters of days gone by being turned into modern day musicals for the stage?
You know what? It's so funny you bring that up because actually, yes, I am, because I saw that very thing just recently.
What?
I know. Yeah, well, I saw the traveling production of Back to the Future, the musical, which I guess began in the UK, I think, and then it was on Broadway, and now it's traveling. And
so here's I want you to tell me all about the big song and dance number involving the Libyan terrorists as they brutally gunned down one Dr. Emmett Brown.
I was very curious how that was I was curious how a lot of things were gonna be handled in this, and that is not present in this iteration.
So somebody clued me in. I as somebody who'd seen it, I was like, okay, you got to tell me the Libyans. And he's like, no. And he explained to me what happened. I found it. We'll go ahead.
You know, it's funny. I don't know if this is a spoiler. I don't mean it to be. And people can skip maybe about 20, 30 seconds ahead, but I thought it was pretty well done. So yeah, basically you need a ticking clock. Well, it's not necessarily a ticking clock when you have a time machine, but you need to rescue Doc from something. That's a big impetus for Marty in that story. You know, it's like, you're going to be shot. Please, change your philosophy about knowing about the future. It could save your life. And so instead of being gunned down by terrorists, in this version, when he's putting the plutonium into the car in the mall before he's about to go back in time himself, he is not suited up properly. And so he gets radiation poisoning and he's dying like very quickly. You know, so he does this thing where he unzips his radiation suit and it's got, if I remember correctly, I think you see like a green glowing sort of skeleton looking effect, on
That's
his
not
chest.
good.
Yeah. And then he's sort of like, oh no. And he's like crumpling to the ground. And Marty is like, I'll get you help. And so he gets in the car, drives really fast, 88, ends up in the past. It worked. It worked.
He says, let's see if you bastards can hit 90 to the,
exactly. Yeah, we didn't get
the
that.
encroaching radiation poisoning.
Yes, exactly. But that's what was kind of fascinating about this. Right at the top, I'll just say it's okay. I mean, does it stand on its own as a successful thing? I don't know. I would say mostly because the strengths of it are the story, which already exists in a movie. So as a musical, is it a good musical? I don't know that it is. I don't think the songs were very memorable. Okay. They're not bad. They're just not very memorable. And inherently, I mean, this isn't a slam on the actors, but Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd are lightning in a bottle. Mm-hmm. So no matter what, it doesn't matter
it's going to seem like cosplay.
Exactly. And it's just never gonna. And it's interesting seeing a different interpretation of Marty because
weirdly it's Eric Stoltz in the musical.
That would be incredible. Yes. Yeah. And John Lithgow is Doc. That'd be amazing. But no, Marty at times he comes across like a little whiny or a little bit like a scaredy cat or something. And you're like, what? Like, you're like,
that's not Marty.
Marty is Michael J. Fox. And so it was kind of weird.
Nobody calls Marty whiny.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say I did have a lot of fun. So,
Okay.
and I think what it really best serves as is a novelty for fans of the movie. If you like the movie, it's really fun and interesting to see how it gets interpreted into another medium. So I mean, everybody walked out with smiles on their faces. Everybody applauds when George knocks out Biff. I mean, the story works, right?
Yeah.
And so that was really fun. But yeah, it was really interesting to see as we were approaching the skateboard chase in the 50s through the town square with Biff, chasing after Marty in his car. I was like, how are they going to do that? So it's kind of interesting how they truncate a little bit. Basically, I won't spoil it all, but like when Marty approaches George in the high school cafeteria, and George is like, oh, I like to write stories. And he's like, I didn't know you did anything creative. That gets sort of smushed into the cafe scene. So it just takes place in the school.
That makes sense. Okay.
And it becomes kind of a chase in the school, like running around the school. Jumping
so no skateboard.
No skateboard.
Okay.
But I was like, that's clever. It totally works. It's they use what they have. And I think the real thing that a lot of people I've seen talk about ever since it debuted is I guess you could call it the special effects. I mean, the car effects are really awesome. And the ending where Doc is hanging from the clock tower and Marty is somewhere completely else in the car, the way that they did that on stage is incredible. The way that they can cut back and forth and they use screens, and it was amazing. It was pretty amazing. And then the car flies away at the end. That was amazing. So yeah, I mean, like if I had to actually rate it, I would be like, well, I mean, on its own, it is what it is. But as a fan of the movies,
sure,
it's a pretty cool sort of, well, I'll be darned. That was a fun,
as a tribute to the movie you love.
Exactly. That's even better. I was gonna say, I keep saying novelty. It's like, oh, well, that was interesting, but yeah, it's a loving tribute. And if you're a fan of the films, it's just fun to see a thing you love, reinterpreted, and you're inherently forgiving of it because it is different.
Right.
But I know that's in Los Angeles right now, and I know it tours, but seems like it could be coming to a town near you sometime.
My understanding is that Bob Gale was involved in some capacity as far as shaping the story for the stage.
I want to say he even wrote it.
Okay. He just straight up wrote it.
Which makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's in many cases almost line for line.
Okay.
And Alan Silvestri, I think, was involved with the music. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting. But I also saw a couple movies I wanted to mention.
And real quick, actually, before we move on, just because we're in the Back to the Future neighborhood, I just, this past week, as it happens, I rewatched Back to the Future 3 because I've been going through them with my 10-year-old, and, it's been spaced out. He's like, when are we going to watch Back to the Future 3? So we finally did that, and we get to the end. And this is not a new observation, but it definitely, it's something about seeing the words, the end, felt so precious to me. Because that's really, Back to the Future is at this point a bit of a unicorn in that it's a beloved trilogy that has remained consistently beloved. You know what I mean? Yep. It's never gone away, and yet it's a finite thing. It's those three movies, and okay, you got some whatever cartoon shows or whatever, but it's those three movies, and that's it, and that's all it'll ever be, to the best of our knowledge.
Yep.
And they're no less beloved for that. That's kind of what's interesting to me.
I know they endure. And I it reminds me, I was talking with someone recently about them being remade, and, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, the Bobs, basically have said, as long as they're alive, that won't happen. And you can understand a studio, I mean, that's making Gladiator II, Top Gun 2, blah, blah, blah. Like, of course they want to make a new Back to the Future. Like, whether it's good or not, it will make a lot of money. There'll be a lot of attention on it. But it reminds me of something we said when we were talking about Zemeckis' recent movie Here, which we both liked and was not being received very well. And I was thinking that is a movie out of time. It's just too sincere for right now. And I remember the example I said was trying to explain that was Forrest Gump, where Forrest Gump was beloved the world over, won Best Picture, made millions and millions and millions of dollars, has endured to this day in cultural memory. In 1994, it was the right time for that movie. If that movie came out now, I think it would be ripped to shreds.
Sure.
And I think
you're right. Yeah.
Similarly, a little different, but similarly, Back to the Future, that whatever the alchemy of that is, the tone of that movie, you can't recapture that in 2024. I just don't think you can. And even if you tried, it wouldn't come across correctly.
Yeah.
And so I just think, like you said, it's a unicorn. It was made at the right time. And it was so damn good. It continues to endure all these years later. And I just don't think it could be redone and succeed and exist. It couldn't be the same magical concoction that it was. It's just impossible in 2024.
I think you're right. So thank goodness for those three. And again, it like, I feel like this is a lesson studios can learn, there's value in the ending. There's value in a property not stretching into the distance as far as you can see. Just let it end. Let those those two words.
Well, I was going to say, I'm picturing Paramount executives as Gladiator II is doing quite well the world over, like with their cash register, like Moe with the flaming Moe, and Homer's like, "You just lost yourself a customer," and we're like, "There's something to be said about letting things end." Cha-ching, what? Cha-ching, what? Yes, I said there's value.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Well, you see anything else?
Yeah, I saw a couple of things, so I'll try to keep a few of them brief, but I did want to mention I saw A Real Pain. Is...
Listen, I think it's hurtful to call me that. I thought we had a good time hanging out together.
Yeah, when you were here, I saw A Real Pain. Oh, you didn't let me finish.
We could take this conversation. We could have taken this to text. You didn't need to broadcast it to the world. It's hurtful. That's all I'm saying.
No, this is kind of a small movie that seemed to be doing
Jesse Eisenberg, right?
Jesse Eisenberg, he wrote and directed this. Kieran Culkin is in it also, and they play cousins who couldn't be more different personality-wise, but they go on a trip through Poland, sort of in honor of their grandmother who's just passed away.
Okay.
And I didn't know a lot about it, but our friend Bushra wanted to go see it. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed this movie. This is like a true slice of life film in that it's just really well observed, well observed characters, well observed, behavior in different sorts of situations. It felt like a lot of times as they were going through different scenes, you could sort of imagine the set piece in like a studio movie, like what would happen or the complication that would arise. But that doesn't happen in this. This is much more honest storytelling. Not that that's better or worse, but that's just that's the tenor of this movie.
So it's not a planes, trains type.
Not at all. Although it like literally is. It's like these mismatched people going through all these scenarios and being at odds with one another, forgiving one another, growing. But yeah, I like, and Planes, Trains is on my Mount Rushmore of movies. So I adore that. But it was nice to see this take two, like I was saying, very honest, well-observed sort of storytelling and characters. And it truly is a movie that just drops you in, lets you observe these people and how they bounce off of other people and one another. And then it just ends, pulls you out, trips over. And it really is just a character study. And, but I thought a really lovely one. And it was time well spent with these people. I really enjoyed it. So I'd recommend it. Like I said, though, it's, I don't know that it'll be for everyone, but just for people who really want to go watch like a really well done character film, I think I definitely recommend A Real Pain.
Is this Eisenberg's first time directing?
I believe he did something before this, which I haven't seen, and I heard someone talking about it on another podcast and saying they didn't like it.
Okay.
I mean, that's someone's opinion. I don't know, but But yeah, I thought this was great writing. Like, there's a lot of little, very true to life situations that they find themselves in, and it's interesting seeing how they react to them. You know, like there's one moment that's in the trailer, excuse me, where they're on this tour and they see these statues, and it's like a war memorial. And Kieran Culkin, who's the more outgoing, outspoken, maybe erratic even at times kind of character, is like, I want to get a picture of me posing with the soldiers. And Jesse Eisenberg is like, well, I don't know. I mean, is that disrespectful? I don't know. And he's like, Kieran's like, no, come do it with me, please. Come do this with me. And Eisenberg's like, no, I just feel uncomfortable doing this. So Culkin goes up, poses with the statues. And then the other people in their tour group are like, oh, that looks like fun. And it ends up with everyone posing with the statues and Eisenberg holding everyone's cameras and having to awkwardly take everyone else's pictures. And it just feels like I've been on both sides of that. I've been the guy who's tried to rally people to do something kind of fun. And you're like, yo, just do it. You know, I know maybe you don't want to do it, but I think in the end, we'll be thankful we have the picture. It'll be a good memory. But I've also been on the other side, like, I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't do that. What will people think? You know? So it's just, it's filled up with situations like that are just kind of interesting. And you're like, oh, it feels like almost like Eisenberg had a notebook, and as he experienced certain little picadillos of life, he wrote them down, because they're things you experience, but you don't always see observed in a film. And I thought those things were pretty well captured.
Nice. So I believe I just got a screener for this one.
Oh, nice.
And for Anora, actually. So
perfect.
I'm loading up the list of Brian recommendations.
I high recommend for Anora. Also, high recommend not family Thanksgiving viewing. It's like, it is a very, very sexually graphic movie. But not an exploitive sort of crass movie. I mean, it's just.
Oh, well, I'll just explain that to my in-laws and stuff.
Yeah. Well, you see, she's a sex worker. What do you expect?
Yeah,
you know? Like,
it's not exploitative though.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to talk to you about that one, especially. That story. I mean, I would maybe at some point, if there's not a lot of movies coming out, I think that'd be a good one to sort of talk through, because it's a movie where you think you kind of know where it's going, and then it pivots a little bit, and I really love where it ended up. So, but okay, two more. One's pretty big, so I feel like I should mention it. But before that, I have to talk about my favorite movie I watched this week. It is a very, very small indie movie called I Like Movies.
Go on.
And I don't remember how this came on my radar. But apparently this was made in 2022. It's a Canadian film. It was made for, I want to say, $225,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And it just got distribution in the US. So I was reading about it. Well, anyway, the plot is basically there's this movie obsessed kid who is very socially awkward. He's kind of mean. He reminded me a little bit of Jonah Hill's character in Superbad.
Oh, okay.
Where he's like funny and kind of charming sometimes, but then he can get really nasty. He's really nasty to people, and you're almost like, why are people friends with this guy? But he does have his charms as well, and he wants to be a friend to people. And so this kind of awkward kid, he is movie obsessed, and he gets a job at a video store. And I'm reading off of IMDb, but he forms a complicated friendship with his older female manager.
Okay.
And I was like, boom, I'm in. You know, it sounds like I love things like that, you know, sort of mismatched friendships and, sort of Clerks, you know, cinephile obsessed people. And so I queued it up. I got it on Amazon, or rented it on Amazon Prime. And Zachy, I loved this.
Really? Okay.
Definitely recommend it, especially for our audience, I think. I'll say right off the top, the $225,000 budget, you kind of sense it. You know what I mean? And so you just got to know that. You got to be a little forgiving of that. But what is incredible, like it's a really good script. But the secret sauce, the casting is incredible. This kid is a discovery. And because the type of character.
How old is he?
I think in real life, I think he really is like 16 or 17 or something, or at least when they shot it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But he is this kid? I mean,
Hmm.
and it's so delicate. If you push him a little bit too far this way, you hate him, because he's really mean to his mother in this movie. And his mother, oh, she is cast so incredibly, this long suffering mother who you just want to hug because she's, you could watch it one way as a 16-year-old and sort of see maybe what he's feeling and experiencing and whatever. But as a grown up, I understood what he was feeling, but I was also so sympathetic to the mother and everything the boy just doesn't understand about what she's going through and how difficult it is to be his mother. And,
Right.
and then the manager, she is so damn good. And she gets this sort of monologue in the middle where I have to admit, I was a little like, oh, I think I kind of know where this is going. And then by the end of it, I was like, wow. Like the way she plays it is not exactly what you'd expect. And it's really, really well done. And her relationship with the boy is so like interesting and complicated, the way that they both kind of want to be friends with one another and think like, hey, we're both misfits in a way. Maybe we can like bond over that. But but the boy just makes it so difficult because he's so frustrating. Um, but it is a journey, and he learned some things along the way, and by the end I had a tear in my eye just at his efforts to try to become the person he would like to be.
Right.
Dude, big recommend. I
Oh,
like
that's awesome.
movies. I love finding gems like this. Sometimes I even think, how many movies like this that I'm really connecting with so hard am I missing? Because
Right.
I could have so easily missed the existence of this movie. Um, but and I want to say, the Chandler Levac is
Okay.
the writer director, and she is a film critic. I think based in Canada somewhere, and I want to say this is her first feature.
Okay.
So there's like a couple, look, there's a couple moments in the script where you think like, oh man, that could have been hit maybe a little harder, or maybe like a hint more texture there might have really brought that home. I'm just saying it because it was a thought that I had, but overall, I didn't care. Like, I think the writing is strong enough, and especially the cast, the actors here,
Yeah.
like they really make this thing work. And when it was over, I loved it. And I was like, I'm just going to buy it. I just want to support it. Like, I haven't felt that in a long time.
That's great.
So yeah, I definitely wanted to make people aware of that. I think you'd enjoy it.
I'm sure
I
I
think
would.
most of our audience would enjoy it.
Did you tangentially connected? Did you ever watch that new Kevin Smith joint, the 4:15 movie or whatever it's called? I think it's that, right?
4:30 movie.
4:30. I was off by 15 minutes.
You're a little
I
early.
got there early.
Yeah. No, I meant to catch it in theaters because that I tend to do that with Smith movies. I go out and I see him, save for his kind of horror films. But
Right. Oh, you didn't watch Tusk?
no, I'm good. But you did. You were telling me about it.
I did. I wish I hadn't.
Yeah. But but it was only out for like a week. And
Yeah.
I wasn't able to that week, and I thought, okay, I'll go next week, and it was gone. So now I'm waiting for it to be reasonable rental price, not the
Mhm.
$20 or whatever it is, but down to like $5.
Yeah.
But I will. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's just only it's from what you're describing about I like movies, it feels like both of these sprang from a similar instinct.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I know the filmmaker Levac. She did work at a video store,
Mhm.
so she said it's not entirely autobiographical. But
Okay.
and then there you go, Kevin Smith working at a
Yeah.
convenience store.
Actually, while we're talking about Kevin Smith, did you hear that Dogma has been freed from its rights prison?
I did. Yeah, that was tied up with the Weinsteins or Miramax or something, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, that movie was personally owned by Harvey Weinstein.
Damn. Okay.
I know. Talk about like the shittiest scenario. Like the thing that allowed the movie to be released 30 or 25 years ago was keeping it from being released now.
Interesting. But isn't that funny?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I guess they've come to it was not on digital, and physical media copies were going for like $600-700, which even if you like the movie, it's not worth $600-700.
Nah.
Let me just say. Yeah.
And at some point that's just not going to be the case, So
Yeah.
if you can be
Exactly.
patient.
So I guess he's taking it on tour now, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna do a sequel," and I'm like, "Yeah, you said you were doing a Mallrats 2 also." So
yeah.
we'll see.
I was just talking about Dogma with someone, and I was saying when the internet was like newish in its
Yes.
availability, its wide availability, that was one of the first scripts I found online, and it wasn't produced at that moment. Because I was like, well, I like Kevin Smith. It's the middle 90s. And I heard there's this thing called Dogma. And it was like, boom, easy. Google Dogma script. There it is. And so,
Yeah.
and I remember reading it and thinking, I mean, it feels like his voice.
Yeah.
And then when I saw the movie, I was like, well, I'll be damned. That was it.
Literally for having watched that movie, right? That was the
I will be damned. Yes.
You will be damned. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But I figure I have to mention this. But I saw Wicked, apparently the biggest movie in the world as we record.
How about that?
Have you seen the production?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't either.
Okay.
All I knew was that this is sort of like Lion King 1.5, where it's like there's a story going and then it eventually is in the background of The Wizard of Oz. And
Okay.
I was with friends seeing the trailer and everyone was like, I'm not seeing that. I have no interest in that. I'm not going to that. But I was kind of like, I don't know. I like The Wizard of Oz. Like, I'm curious. So again, our friend Bushra and we went and I liked it.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I'm not musical averse like I know many people are. I don't like them when the songs aren't good, but I mean, if it's a catchy tune, what's not to like for me personally, and I thought this was pretty good. I'm not.
No, I understand, Brian, that they've hobbited this thing and split it in two.
Yes, but I feel that was probably a good decision.
Okay.
In the same breath, did this need to be 2 hours and 40 minutes? I don't think so. Now, if you're a huge fan, and we went opening night, and I mean, it was full. The theater was full. People were dressed in green
Gladiator suits.
Ink, and
They were
it's Gladiator suits. Yeah, and full theater applause after every song. Mercifully, no one was singing.
Well, that's a thing, apparently.
Yeah, but I was really. I've said this a couple times in the span of our show. I remember Twilight especially, where you're like, "Oh, this is typically you and I are familiar or involved in the fandoms of these certain sort of movies that just take over the planet for a little while." And it's interesting when I'm not. I remember Twilight was one of those things where it was huge. They made tons of money. People love them. But I hadn't read them. I don't know the story. And I'm just completely outside on that thing. And it felt like that with this. I mean, I knew it was popular, but popular. And look at me now, Zachy. What's happened?
I don't know. I don't know who I'm talking to.
I know. But it was fun. It was fun seeing people who knew this thing chapter and verse having a great time.
Okay.
So
that sounds awful to me because F those people. Don't they know how much misery there is in the world right now?
Dude, that's so funny. I mean, I guess my very, very brief review is I would say I had a good time. I wouldn't have minded if maybe 20 minutes were whacked out of it. Everything with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande is great. They are great individually. Their characters are great together. I really locked on to what they were going through and their growth together and their friendship and all that. There's a whole kind of subplot about animal rights. You know what I mean? Sort of animals being sort of discriminated against. And it's funny because I knew nothing about the story going in. And when I realized that was kind of the story, I was like, oh, really? It's just not what I expected,
Is it because of the genetically engineered flying monkeys that there's the whole thing about them being tormented with the wings being grafted to their backs as they scream in agony? And
are you aware that that's a thing?
I swear to God, I was just making a joke.
That's literally what happens.
Seriously?
Yes.
Well, God damn it.
As you were saying it,
funny.
I was like, I bet he doesn't know that that's in the movie.
I swear to God, I was just joking.
No, well, not exactly in the context you're saying. I mean, basically, they have a professor who's like a goat, played by Peter Dinklage, and he's
Okay.
going to be let go from the university because he's like a talking animal. And
Yeah.
it's on the face of it, it's like, yeah, okay. Actually, it is funny. I was like, talking animals, what is this? And then I forgot that there's a whole cowardly lion in the original.
That's right.
I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of baked in the cake. I forgot. But I just found myself less interested when it kept going to that plot.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm animalist. I don't know. But anytime it focused on, like I said, Grande and Arrivo and their whole thing and trying to understand one another and the wizard and all that stuff, I was like,
and the
totally
wizard
into it.
is Jeff Goldblum.
Oh man, I don't even think he's playing a character. He is Jeff Goldblum.
I was going to ask you. I was like, how much on the Goldblumotron does he hit? You know,
He is 10 out of 10 Goldblum in this. I don't know what the character's like on Broadway, but and you know, I mean, it's certainly funny and captivating in its own way. But I the songs are pretty good. I'd say most of the songs, some of them I was like, oh, I expected a little bit more because this is so popular out of a couple of the songs. But the ones that you know, you're like, well, I mean, these are undeniable. These are like Defying Gravity is just like incredible. You know, it's very rousing. And then when it ended and it says to be continued, I was like, let's go. I'm ready. Like I'm ready for the next one. So
they go to Mordor in the next one.
Yes.
One presumes. Okay. Yeah, I was because I know you'd seen it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to try to sneak it in. And then it's like 2 hours and 40. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm not watching this by myself. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can go with Amina. And she's like, well, I can't leave the baby. Like it became this sort of production just to see this production.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? With these movies, they're so freaking long.
Yeah, so that's I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna take I will not be able to defy gravity this time.
Or maybe if you get a screener of it, you guys can watch it at home or something.
Yeah, that would be my option. Did you ever see Oz the Great and Powerful? By the way,
yes, I did.
Okay, yeah, it's weird how like every 10 years or so, it's like, hey, let's do the Wizard of Oz again, you know?
Yeah, like or maybe it's feeling a little less sacrilegious or something the more that they sort of poke at it. Because I'd heard a couple times people thinking about remaking the Wizard of Oz, and it's like, don't do that.
Yeah,
but then they sort of go to around the edges of it, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously this was a successful, I mean, over 20 years ago, this was like a phenomenon on Broadway. But
you know what I would like to revisit, which I haven't seen in decades, is Return to Oz.
I don't think I've ever seen that. That's the 80s one, right?
That's the 80s one, and that shit was nightmare fuel.
That's
when I was a kid.
Hear that. Yeah.
Oh,
well,
it's
so to explain why that is.
Well, it's like super dark. Gary Kurtz produced it.
Right.
And it's basically like, hey, let's do like Dorothy after the events of Wizard of Oz. She's played by Fairuza Balk, you know, from The Craft.
Yep.
She's like, nobody believes her, and they're using like electrolysis to get rid of her brain damage. Wow. It's so freaking dark. Which even as a kid, I was like, this is like punk rock, you know?
Right.
Even as a kid, because I was into it. You know what I mean? It was scary, but I was into it.
Yeah, totally.
And they have this whole thing where the evil queen who's taken over Oz, she like removes her head. She has different heads instead of wigs.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I remember being quite, you know, I thought it was very good. I just haven't seen it in a while. And I don't know. I would assume that there's more folks like me now who are like, no, that movie was pretty metal when it came out, you know, because it tanked.
Yeah,
because people showed up with their kids, probably like, oh, here's a Disney Wizard of Oz. And I'm like, what the hell is this? You know?
Right.
So I'd be curious. Anyway,
you know who directed that?
Oh, wasn't it? Oh God, I should know this.
I had to look it up because I knew it was someone.
Murch?
Walter Murch.
Yeah, it was Murch.
Renowned editor Walter Murch.
Yeah, and again, it was like a disaster at the box office.
Yeah.
But kind of what you said before, you know, their time makes its own decisions about some of these things, you know.
Yeah. Well, what about you? You seen anything?
Well, I haven't, the only thing I'll just mention is just yesterday, in lieu of watching Wicked, I took my kids to watch Red One.
Oh, okay. Which, by the way, don't you feel like, I mean, with the drubbing it's gotten and everything, don't you feel like you and I should be quoted on the Blu-ray box?
I truly feel that because people are taking a certain degree of relish in knocking the stuffing out of Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
And granted, Dwayne Johnson just put out like a video. I think it was about Moana, where because there's this thing about, oh, should people sing in theaters? And
Yeah.
and he's like, listen, if you paid your money, you went, and you want to sing, you should sing. And people are like, F you, rock, And I'm like, Dwayne, you don't have to chime in on everything,
Yeah, old Dwayne P. Bottle Johnson.
Yeah,
By the way, if I paid, which by the way, I'm going to be that guy. And I said this the last time we talked about this. I paid $27 for one ticket to see Red One, which is insanity.
that is a lot.
If I pay $27 to watch this movie, I think I have the right not to have to listen to my neighbor sing in my ear. You know what I mean?
Sure. Right. Well, not having been to a musical recently, I would imagine something like Wicked, if it's not going to be like one rando singing, it would be like a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, like, fine, I guess. I don't have an opinion on the great singing divide. Anyway, my point is, he puts out weird. He's like, I'm not going to endorse in the presidential election, but here's my view on singing in the movie. I find that amusing.
Yeah.
But anyway, there has been sort of like a little bit of glee in taking a whack at him like a pinata, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is unfortunate because as anybody who listened to our last episode knows, you and I both enjoyed it. And having watched it, I was like, I want to take my kids. I think they'll have fun. And so I went yesterday. It was cheap day, so I paid $28 for 4 people.
Wow. Well, that's true? 28 for all?
Yeah, that is true.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay.
It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Go on cheap day. But they enjoyed it. It held up for me for sure. It's a lot of fun. And I said it in our last episode. I don't know how much, like, in terms of the holiday season, whether this will be an option for families, but I think it should be. But more importantly, I think, and Amazon, they've said as much, that it's really meant to live on the streaming service. I think it will have a strong afterlife, and I'm glad they released it in theaters first, because it gives it that imprimatur, and maybe you and I are just sort of antiquated in that regard.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's plenty of similar stuff that just gets dropped onto these streaming services, and that's the fastest way for me to ignore a big budget movie is if it goes to streaming first.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
So I think it's a lot of fun. It's very sweet. And like I said, my kids all enjoyed it. I had my oldest, he's almost 18. I had my daughter, she's almost 8, and everyone in between. Everybody walked out with a smile on their face.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, we kind of went against the tide on that one, and we saw it ahead of it coming out, so we already kind of had our opinions formed, and then we were seeing what everybody was saying. But I took a little solace. We were talking about this another time, that the cinema score, despite like the low critical rating, and people hating the trailer, which I hated it too, the cinema score was like an A.
That's right.
And I was like, yeah, because it's really not that bad. And even I think I saw an ad with the Rotten Tomatoes audience score at like 90%. And I was like, well, yeah, because it's fun.
People who are making it in seem to be enjoying it. So worth a look. I think it's a very sweet family offering if you're looking for something. If Wicked is sold out, this is a good one to watch, I would say.
Yeah.
One thought I had, this really occurred to me the second viewing, and I think this might speak to why you and I both liked it. I was like, this is MIB, but Christmas.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Like the logistics of the North Pole and all that, like it's like a bureaucracy, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of a grumpy person who's seen it all, bringing in a newcomer. This is all new to them. Yep. Wow, you're totally right. That's funny.
Right. And tonally, that's that's the great thing about certainly the first Men in Black film is that, it treats its world straight. It plays it straight.
Mm-hmm.
But the humor comes from the, how weird it feels to the outsider.
Mm-hmm.
But the Agent K slash, Cal Drift character,
Mm-hmm.
it's like for him, it's just another day at the office.
Yeah, and you have a fantastical character going
Yep.
rogue, and this will
Yep.
affect the entire world, and the world
Exactly.
doesn't know it.
Yep.
Right, but it's up to this newcomer and the old timer
Yeah.
to solve it. That's so
Isn't
funny.
that crazy?
Yeah, that's
So I was
pretty
like,
good.
so I'm like halfway through. I'm like, dude, it's Men in Black. How did I not crack that? The first viewing.
That's really funny.
So I think like for anybody who's on the fence, like think of it that way. If you like Men in Black, it's that same kind of energy.
Yeah.
Brian, we got actually a couple notes here about our recent commentary tracks.
Ooh, okay.
So here's one we got from Jeffrey Meisner. This was at our Patreon. And Jeff says, "Hi, Zachy and Brian. I enjoyed your commentary on Iron Man 3 and had a story to share in reference to when Brian mentioned the possibility of alternate cuts of films creating a Mandela effect."
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. Well, you've been talking about this a lot because even on Gladiator, you mentioned like remembering certain things.
Yeah, like a deleted scene thinking it was in the film. Yeah.
Yeah. So he says, for almost 20 years, I experienced what felt like a Mandela effect with Superman 2. I first saw it when it was broadcast on ABC in 1984. Unknown to 4-year-old me at the time, this was an extended cut where the network jammed it with extra scenes. For me, it was just Superman 2, period. I remember being shocked when Superman destroyed his Fortress of Solitude, which even little me at that point knew was a big deal. The next time it aired on TV, I was very confused when the scene was missing. My parents hadn't paid attention and didn't notice the difference. I thought maybe I missed it. Later, I asked for the movie on VHS, and to my confusion, it wasn't on there either. In this pre-internet era, there was nothing to corroborate my memory. Every time I saw Superman 2, it felt like something was missing, and I only half-heartedly considered I imagined it. But in my gut, I was sure it was real. Finally, in the early 2000s, came DVDs with deleted scenes and the internet to explain it all. It may not have been a mystery for the ages, but I was gratified to see it was real. As always, thanks for the show, and happy Thanksgiving to you both.
And happy Thanksgiving to you, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
that is the perfect example. That is, and I just off the bat, I'll say real quick. I remember Naked Gun 2 was like that. I think because those movies are just like not even 90 minutes soaking wet. And so on TV, they add these extra scenes. Ace Ventura was like that. Goonies. I think that's a famous one I see come up a lot, where a lot of kids, when they watch it on streaming or Blu-ray or something, they say, wasn't there an octopus in this movie? And it turns out when it aired on TV, there was. There's a scene where they're approaching the pirate ship in the water and an octopus attacks them. And they thwart it by, I think, Data sticks a Walkman in its mouth or something. Okay. And then it goes away. And he even in the theatrical cut, they reference it at the end when they're talking to the news reporters, like, "Oh yeah, there's a pirate ship and blah 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 blah." And someone goes, "Giant octopus," which never made sense.
Interesting.
But that is the version that aired on TV, had this octopus scene that I think everyone's confused when they watch the theatrical version. It's not there. I don't know. Do you have anything like that?
Not really, because when I was a kid, most of the movies I watched were on tape in Saudi Arabia, so it was like it was the officially available version.
Yeah.
But with regards to specifically Superman, both 1 and 2, that was definitely something that in the late 90s, early 2000s, you started to see these internet sites that really cataloged all the different versions and all the different footage that was out there. And it was always, for me, it was like, man, I wish I could see this stuff, And then of course with Superman 2, you got eventually the Richard Donner edit, which brought some of that back in. But it Superman 2, the version that Jeff is describing, it ends with Superman destroying. First of all, before that, the Arctic Patrol shows up at the fortress and takes away General Zod and company.
Okay.
So, like, if you're like, hey, did Superman murder all those people? No, he didn't. He didn't snap anybody's neck or anything like that. However, it raises the question of like, what is the Arctic Patrol? Number one, is that a thing? Number two, do they just like know where Superman's fortress is? That seems like a security problem, you know?
Yeah, good point.
But then after that, he sets his. Well, I guess it's not a security problem because then Superman turns and sets his laser vision on the Fortress of Solitude and destroys it, which to me seems like an overcorrecting.
Sure.
Seems like you solved the problem. But anyway, and I don't believe that is in the Donner cut. I could.
Oh, really?
I don't think. Yeah, it exists, but it's I haven't watched the Donner cut in a while, but I don't believe that's in there.
Interesting. One more I need to bring up because we've already referenced it, but Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The first time I ever saw that movie was on television. We taped it off of TV. So that's the version that I know. And there's this extra scene when they're on the airplane crammed in there at the beginning together, where there is like a whole thing with what is it? There's like the air. It's funny. I'm doubting myself now because I know it so well, and I'm like, wait, that is the version that's not in there, right? It's this airplane food scene.
I don't believe that's in there.
Okay, yeah. So where they're talking about John Candy's talking about he has a friend that cooks for the airline, and he accidentally cut his finger off, and I got served with carrots.
No,
and then and then there's a brownie. Neil, Steve Martin's character is looking at all the food, and it looks disgusting. And so remember, he's in between John Candy on one side and this old man on the other. And Candy's like, I mean, if you're not going to eat that, would you mind if I have it? And Steve Martin's like, yeah, it's fine. So Candy is like taking the lasagna. He gives the old man the bun. And then Candy offers the old man a brownie. And he's like, do you want his brownie? And Steve Martin's like, no, I'll take that. And then John Candy's like, oh, he won't let you have the brownie. Like just kind of making it this like situation. It's really funny. I mean, like as I'm saying it now, I'm still doubting myself because I know it's so inherently with that movie. But I guess that's not in the theatrical version. But it was always on the TV version.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy when they do that.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, when we were kids, I do love that. That's a phenomenon that's so unique to people before a certain era, right? Because the internet has taken away the magic of. I think I saw that. I remember seeing that because now you just look that shit up like instantly.
Yep. Mystery solved.
And yet, weirdly, as a society, we have never been dumber. So I don't know. I can't explain it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Thank you, Jeff. Here's a note we got from Brendan Agnew, who emailed us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. And this is in reference to our Gladiator track that we just dropped last week. Mm-hmm. He says, just listen to your crackerjack commentary on 2000's Gladiator. Thank you for that, Brandon. And I definitely recommend that. If you appreciate director's cuts like Kingdom of Heaven, you revisit Robin Hood in its extended version. While it's very different than the subversive Nottingham script it started as, but, if you remember that project, the Ridley Scott Robin Hood, it started as a movie called Nottingham, which was kind of like the Wicked of Robin Hood.
Yeah, it's like a CSI, right? With is it the Sheriff of Nottingham? Like basically using clues and whatever, trying to track down this Robin Hood.
Yeah. And then through the notes process, it just ended up as how about we just do Robin Hood? Sold,
Yeah.
He goes on. It's still a beautiful pre-Game of Thrones medieval political action thriller with a fantastic cast and a charmingly different take on the romance between Robin Hood and Maid Marian. It's also a rare, lavish mega production that foregrounds sets and locations and massive crowds of extras over endless blue screen. It's not the powerhouse that Gladiator is, or the thoughtful meditation on spirituality and foreign policy that Kingdom of Heaven is, but it's a slick companion piece to both. The recently released to Apple TV Plus director's cut of Napoleon will be more divisive, I feel. I think it works as an examination of a surprise superpower, as driven by the world's more dysfunctional power couple. But if you felt tired of the character Napoleon by the end of his film, this won't do you many favors. Amazing work from Vanessa Kirby, though.
I remember that. Yeah.
I'm, you know what? I am definitely in the camp of saying, I'm good. when it comes to Napoleon.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut it off, but this is exactly what I was like interested to hear about, Brendan. Thank you so much, because I think watching Gladiator, I mentioned like the tactility of it all and how much I missed that, and it was just so palpable, the setting and place and everything in there, and it was making me, even though I don't remember loving Robin Hood, it was making me miss just that type of film.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me want to just go back to sort of exist in that kind of Ridley Scott amazing, just capturing a setting in a time period kind of filmmaking, even if I wasn't crazy about the story. So hearing that the director's cut is maybe an even better version of that story makes me want to check that out.
I agree. I have it in my voodoo, so maybe I'll give it a look.
Yeah.
Brandon closes by saying, love the commentary work as always, both filmmaking context and personal anecdotes mixing seamlessly in y'all's conversational style. Keep it up. Can't wait to hear your take on Gladiator. That I was like, what's funny is the title of the second movie actually does that, where the I becomes the Roman numeral 2.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I leaned forward. I said, he did it. That son of a bitch did it.
Yeah.
And then I just started laughing uncontrollably, right. in a very Goldblumy fashion.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Brendan. We'll have more to say about one Ridley Scott in just a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan.
Hey, we got some headlines, Brian.
Let's hear it.
Well, first up, a little bit of sad news just to start things off. Jim Abrahams passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was 80 years old.
Man. Yeah. I mean, just you and I were talking about this yesterday, but in a way, I feel like he's kind of an unsung comedic legend. I mean, we know the name.
He really is.
Like Mel Brooks is a household name,
mm-hmm.
And deservedly so. But like the Abrams and the Zuckers, together as a team, I mean, Airplane, Naked Gun, Hot Shots, like just the best of those parody films, like truly, genuinely hilarious comedy, joke telling. Yeah.
And for those who don't know his filmography, Airplane, Naked Gun trilogy, Hot Shots, obviously Police Squad, right? I mean, this is like, this is like the wet cement that formed our comedy sensibilities.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would imagine because we always point to The Simpsons,
mm-hmm.
right? That's base one. You don't get to The Simpsons without what Jim Abrams and the Zucker brothers did.
I completely agree. I mean, when you go back and watch those films, yeah, almost inherently with certain sorts of comedies and whatever, they feel like of their era,
mm-hmm.
right? But I mean, you look and certain jokes in those films feel of their era, but like the majority of the jokes of the comedy in those movies. I mean, I know Airplane is amazing, but I know Naked Gun better, and it's just they're timeless. They're timeless, brilliant jokes, setups, payoffs, whatever. I mean, they're just. Yeah, they're titans of comedy, and I would just love for his name to be more well known. Honestly,
well, the reality is that Airplane is going to live forever. Like that movie will never be forgotten. In any list of the great movie comedies, Airplane will be on it.
Absolutely,
right. And I think the true testament of what he and the Zuckers achieved on those films is that no one has quite been able to replicate that there's that because their whole thing was like just joke and just keep people laughing, right? And what that you'd think, oh, that's so easy to do, you just throw shit out there. It's like, no, because there got to be more hits than misses.
mm-hmm.
And you see how all the, like, I mean, God, how many parody movies have there been since the 90s?
Well, I mean, there was that whole run with the Friedberg Seltzer guys.
Yeah.
And they kind of
I think
drove
that's
it into the ground.
Out, right. And let's be honest, other than with the possible exception of like Scary Movie, maybe, which people still
Sure.
have. So the original Scary Movie, which people have some affinity for. Nobody really talks about any of those,
Yeah.
right? Not another teen movie. I happen to like it,
Same.
but so it's not easy. That's my only point.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
What they achieved with and even Naked Gun, I would say by the third film, it was sort of it was teetering a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's still funny, not as funny,
Yeah.
But it was specific to that era in that it was parroting tropes of the moment, but they found the way into comedy that was universal, where you don't need to know the underlying premise, the underlying thing that's being parodied in order to laugh at the joke, and that's why those movies still work.
Yep. Definitely.
So Jim Abrams, he will be missed. Also of note, I found this interesting. Certainly, this is something you and I would talk about. Conan O'Brien is hosting the Academy Awards next year.
Yeah.
Now, I should say, as a fan of, and we both are, I was like, hey, great.
Mm-hmm.
But also, as a fan, I was like, huh?
Oh, it's funny. I was gonna say, oh, hey, great, and also, oh no. Like I don't want people being mean to Conan. Like like if it seems that hosting the Oscars is a thankless job.
Sure.
Like it's so much work and there's so much build up to it, and then it's just scrutinized the next day, and it's like, what could it actually possibly be? It really, at the end of the day, it just almost always seems like, well, it's never like excellent. It's always like, well, I guess they pulled it off,
fine.
or it was terrible, right? And so, but on the other hand, knowing who he is, Conan O'Brien Can't Stop, the name of his documentary, you can see him being like, well, that's a fun venue where I can try to make, millions of people laugh.
Yeah.
So that's why I think he would do it.
I'm 100% on board. I'm more fascinated by the point in his career. This is the first time he's ever hosting the Academy Awards.
Right.
Never done it. And this is 30 plus years after first hosting late night. He has not been on a nightly show for several years now.
Mm-hmm.
And so couple points, like on the one hand, you're like that is weird, right? That would be like David Letterman hosting now.
Well, but David Letterman seems a little more removed from entertainment these days, whereas Conan has a really, really popular podcast.
Well, right. So this is the actually you circled around to the point I was trying to make, which is I think it speaks to the robust following he's built up online, which is in addition to and separate from his TV presence.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in other words, it speaks to the impact of new media on this stuff.
Sure. Oh yeah. Good point. Yeah.
That's the only point I was making.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like Conan, like you said, his podcast, the YouTube clips get, and he very good interviews he does.
Mm-hmm.
He's still very funny. I mean, it is funny because you have to give credit to and I don't listen to the show, but to Joe Rogan for having demonstrated the appeal and viral potential of just sitting down with somebody who's well known or semi well known and just shooting the shit with them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, because look at all of the because the Conan show is like that. Ted Danson has a show as part of the Conan network.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Ted Danson and Woody Harrelson. They're just talking, it's just celebrities just shooting the breeze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And so I think Conan is better than most at that. He's always been better than most at that. So again, as a fan, I'm like, oh man, this is great. But I'm also like, man, it is fascinating to me because I would not in terms of traditional media, I would not consider Conan particularly zeitgeisty anymore.
It's funny you say that, or even I was going to agree with you before you even said any more, because he's always been popular, but he's always, to me, felt sort of like a cult figure.
I would say that circa early 2000s was like his most mainstream moment in terms of like everybody knew who Conan O'Brien was,
Right.
right? And I think that's why he got the Tonight Show gig 5 years in advance. Remember all the stuff that happened?
Oh yeah, of course.
It was because NBC was like, "Oh, we got to strike while the iron is hot, but we'll do it 5 years from now."
Yeah.
And that's a whole separate thing. But anyway, but my only point is I think by virtue of I have a feeling Conan is going to be like, "Look, I don't give a shit,"
Yeah.
and I think that's what'll make it fun.
That's what he should do. Absolutely. Yeah, because I think he's said this, but when he was doing the Tonight Show, he was overthinking a little bit.
Yeah,
with what the
trying
Tonight
to be
Show
mainstream.
is. Yeah, and I think when he's just himself, that's when he obviously is at his best. But I think it's interesting on the podcast or with the podcast. I know some people who I don't think really watched him on TV, but they listen regularly to his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
His appeal is or his audience has grown in a lot of ways. And so it'll be interesting to see how that translates because he is quirky though. You know what I mean? Like he isn't a Jay Leno type person. So I'm very curious what his brand looks like at the Oscars.
And speaking of that, I mean, Jay Leno, he never hosted the Oscars.
That's true. And you can kind of picture it, I guess. Right? I mean,
yeah, I don't know what calculus goes into this because Letterman hosted once and it was famously not particularly, at least it was not well received in the room, and then obviously Letterman has never allowed himself to live it down, but it wasn't among the great hosting jobs, let's put it that way.
Right. Oprah. Well, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
That's what I remember, right?
Yeah.
And I still remember Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon were coming out to present an award, and that's at the time they were dating, and they're famously outspoken. He says, here's Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon, and they're probably pissed off about something. Which always cracks me up. But on the other hand, I mean, Jimmy Kimmel's done it a bunch of times, and I think he's done a pretty good job.
I think I don't know how you get any better, to be honest. I feel like he brings enough personality to make it at least feel unique, but he doesn't do too much of this, or he's not just too milquetoast. Like it just kind of works. So. Yeah, I thought he's been the best in recent years.
In recent years, yeah, and obviously it'll be very hard to go lower than James Franco and Anne Hathaway.
There should be an oral history on that.
There really should.
Yeah,
that was something to see. We get to say we witnessed it. We witnessed history when that happened.
Yeah.
And one of my personal favorites has always been Steve. I still remember when Steve Martin. I think it was Steve Martin and Martin Short.
That makes a lot of sense.
Maybe I'm misremembering, but it was definitely Steve Martin, and it was in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2001.
Okay,
and it was
so Gladiator,
the Gladiator, and I when Steve Martin introduces the Best Actor category, he goes, a homosexual poet, a guy who talks with his volleyball, and a man who dresses up in gladiator outfits. But enough about me.
I love Steve Martin.
that is the quintessential Steve Martin line and delivery,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I suppose we'll be back here in a few months talking about how Conan just killed it. He just murdered at the Oscars.
I hope so.
Yeah, in a good way. Hey, here's another bit of news I want to mention real quick. Did you know that there is a He-Man movie that is in development?
There's been a He-Man movie in development ever since I moved to California over 20 years ago.
I was like, there have been several versions of He-Man movies at some point or another, and you and I think we've even talked about like the window may have closed on this thing having an actual audience.
I mean, I remember reading these scripts when I was working at studios, and so to me it was like, oh, that's a thing people are going to want to or studios at least are going to want to happen, and it will never happen.
Well, so here's the thing. So this is a movie. It's being directed by Travis Knight.
Yeah.
He did Kubo and the Two Strings, which I loved. He did Bumblebee, which I really enjoyed. So when he signed on, I was like, okay, I'm intrigued,
yep.
Right? And this is set up at MGM / Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So, however, it is for theatrical, and they've been very clear about that. It is not just to end up on the streaming service. Now, again, I am suspect of anything, but once you start seeing casting notices, this gets my, dare I hope, Brian? So first of all, playing the role of He-Man, this is exciting. We have actor Nicholas Galitzine.
I'm looking at him right now.
Yeah,
because I'm not sure I'm familiar with him.
Don't know who that is. I'm at that stage where I'm like, I don't recognize the He-Man.
Oh, he was in The Idea of You, speaking of Anne Hathaway, which I do remember.
Okay.
Earlier this year, but I'm not really familiar with him.
Now, a couple of years ago, they had that other guy, the Atom Smasher guy. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't recall.
The guy who played Atom Smasher in Black Adam. What the hell's his name?
Oh, he was in Black Adam?
Yeah.
We'll never
What's that actor's name? Noah Centineo.
Okay. Sounds like we're at the end of Shawshank Redemption.
Anyway.
I always dream of going to Noah Centineo. Anyway, sorry. Yes.
Okay. So we got that. Camila Mendes is going to play Tila.
Okay. She's on Riverdale, I'm seeing.
Yeah, she's from Riverdale. That's what I know from. Not that I watch Riverdale. I know of Riverdale. I know of the existence of it. I swear to God, I never watched Riverdale. I don't know why I'm ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed.
I swear.
I'm digging in a little too much. I have no strong feelings on Riverdale. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the important bit. Oh, Alison Brie, by the way, she's playing Evil Lynn.
Great. Perfect.
By the way, so we were on we were on the Netflix the I think it was on Netflix or Peacock or something, but it was like the screen for Community, and it had Alison Brie, and my daughter, she's 7, she goes, "Is that Alison Brie?" And I was like, why on earth would she know Alison Brie by name? That was a weird.
Do you know?
I have no idea.
How old is she?
She's 7.
7. Huh.
Yeah. So anyway,
is that Alison Brie?
Yeah, weird, right? That's
is that Glow's Alison Brie?
She of Glow fame, yeah. She of being married to Dave Franco, I think she said.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's the important bit. In talks currently, I don't think it's been finalized yet, but we've got Idris Elba in talks to play Man at Arms, aka Duncan.
Can I say A, awesome, B, the other night someone told me that he was going to be playing Skeletor, and I freaked out because that's so awesome.
Yeah.
And so
that would be awesome.
When I saw that wasn't the case, I was like, oh.
Oh, come on, he'd be a great Man at Arms.
No, absolutely. But my mind, of course, first
he would be a great Skeletor. Yeah. He would be a great Skeletor.
Now I'm very curious who's going to be Skeletor. But yes, awesome Man at Arms, of course.
Well, I got to say, having watched Gladiator, if you want Denzel Washington to play Skeletor, I would be fully on board with that.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, this, you know what, I'm literally, as I'm sitting here recording this, I have an entire 3 shelves dedicated to just Masters of the Universe merchandise.
Oh wow.
So I am a fan, and so I'm like, God, A, I want this movie to actually happen. B, I want it to be good.
Yeah. Well, tone. What the heck is the tone going to be? It could be anything. You know what I mean? I mean, look at the movie from the 80s. It's not sci-fi medieval, Right. I doubt they would do that, to be fair. But I mean, is it going to feel like Lord of the Rings? Is it going to feel a little heightened? Because there is a sci-fi element to it.
I've said this for a while. I'm like, Masters of the Universe can have a lane all to itself where it is sci fantasy.
Yes.
And nobody else is doing that.
I think that would be awesome. That's what I hope for, because it'll feel different.
Right. You got like magic swords and talking tigers and cyborgs.
Mm-hmm.
All in the same world. So there's this potential vein to be tapped of just like, obviously you get the nostalgia, but like you could really create something that could be more than just member berries. It could kind of create a mythology all on its own, So I'm hopeful. My point is only this: when you bring in on somebody like Idris Elba. To me, that signals, okay, we're treating this seriously.
Yes, totally.
You know, so I'm hopeful, and I'm also hopeful that this happens. If for no other reason, then it'll give us a chance to talk through the 1987 movie,
Yeah, definitely.
which would be hecka fun.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah.
It was funny because I looked up this guy, this Galaxine kid, and I showed Amina. I was like, "Hey, this is the guy who's playing He-Man." She's like, "Oh, he's all right." And I was like, "Well, he's no Dolph Lundgren." And I was kind of making a joke, like okay. So this is a statement I was making. I was like, Dolph Lundgren is a good-looking man. I would not consider him a handsome man necessarily. He's just a good-looking. He's like a decent-looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, Dolph Lundgren is really attractive. What do you mean? And I was like, really? And I don't know. I didn't realize. I just assumed he was not. I don't know.
I mean, I guess I don't know either. But I mean, I can see it. Like, he's kind of got that chiseled, I don't know, like almost like Nordic. Am I wrong? Maybe, like, you know, I'm like, I get
he's
it.
not ugly.
Like,
He's just he's a normal, decent looking guy.
yeah. Or I mean, I'm definitely thinking of like 80s Dolph Lundgren. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, yeah, like
with that big mullet that he had as He-Man, you know?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, obviously he's ripped. He's got kind of like these angular features. Like, I mean, I guess I kind of get it. Maybe he's just not my type. I don't know.
He's not your type. That's fair. I think it's important to be able to admit that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this thing is due for release. I don't know when, actually.
Hopefully next year. I'm an impatient man.
June 5th, 2026 is the plan. So initial draft written by David Callum. Plot details are being kept under wraps for the film. One presumes He-Man will be in it and Courtney Cox will not.
That'd be a fun cameo.
I think that would be a good cameo, actually. Yeah. And no word on who's going to play Skeletor, but we know it will not be Idris Elba.
Mm-hmm.
So place your bets, place your wagers. Frank Langella, to this day, says the role he had the most fun playing was Skeletor.
Yeah, I love that.
And he sure hammed it up to the rafters there. So
yeah.
But hey, let's take. Oh, by the way, actually, while we're talking about 80s movies that are being revived, there's also a Voltron movie that is casting up.
Yeah, I have to look that up because I heard about that, but I don't know who's involved.
This is also at Amazon MGM.
Oh, okay.
So Amazon MGM, it's locking in Fox WFLD syndicated weekday afternoon cartoon shows.
You know what? And maybe that's brilliant.
Let's get some Robotech in there. You know,
it's funny. I liked Voltron, but I wouldn't say I loved it.
I'm with you.
But speaking of member berries, I'm like, well, I remember that, and it sort of reminds me of a happy time in my life. So you might get people like me out there to go see it.
Well, so here's what we got with the Voltron movie. While we're talking about great black actors, Sterling K. Brown is in the house.
Okay, nice.
Rita Ora, John Kim, Henry Cavill.
Oh,
Henry Cavill as Voltron. I hope.
the robotic collection
yeah, exactly.
of
it'll be his head. That'd
be hilarious.
It was my oldest son. He's for his Eagle project in Boy Scouts. He's building a bench.
Okay,
like it's like pretty elaborate thing, and it's like a lot of work. And so he's like doing this, and my brother has come over to help him and stuff. And I'm a total yutz when it comes to anything remotely involving hammering and things like that. So my only contribution is being like form, feet, and legs. Form, arms, and torso. And I'll form the head. And I've done that enough times where both of them are like, stop. I just kind of wander and do my little Voltron thing and leave.
That's so funny.
Hey, let's take another break, and then we're going to talk about the big release in theaters now. Okay, we are back. And Brian, you know who else is back?
Who's that?
Why, it's Maximus Decimus Meridius.
You know what? He kind of is back, isn't he?
Kind of. Based on Gladiator II, he never really left.
Yeah.
Gladiator II is in theaters now, and it's doing fine.
Not bad. I mean, I keep seeing, and this is sort of the way that it is these days, but more attention to worldwide box office than domestic.
Yes.
I think it did pretty good domestic, but worldwide, everyone seems to be pretty happy.
I'm sure. I mean, this is the type of movie that's going to play very well internationally because, and partially it's because the original film is still very highly regarded, and you're just watching people beat each other up, and who doesn't want to see that?
It's pretty universal, yeah.
If the Tyson Paul fight taught us anything, it's that people want to see other people beating each other up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They didn't get that with Tyson Paul, but boy howdy, do we get that here?
Yeah, but we showed up for it. That's why we showed up.
That's right. That's right.
You know what's kind of cool, by the way? The Chinese theater out here put up a huge Coliseum facade outside of it. And I saw it online, and I was driving really late at night the other night, and I thought, oh, it might be empty. I won't have to deal with traffic. So I went over the little detour to Hollywood Boulevard and pulled over, and there's no traffic. I literally stopped in the road and snapped a picture, and it looks really amazing. I mean, whoever's coming up with this stuff, and there's a whole mini Coliseum facade around bus benches in my neighborhood too.
Wow!
So they went all out.
It's a lot of Coliseum facades.
Yeah.
Did you get your foam finger with the thumbs up?
No. Actually, I saw it at Paramount on the Paramount lot with my friend who works there, and we did get T-shirts. That was pretty cool, but no foam thumbs ups.
I got a few actually.
Shirt or thumbs up?
The thumbs up, the foam thumbs. Yeah, that's
so funny.
So I may be part of the problem. We're like, oh, this is disgraceful. How the Romans used to, encourage each other to murder, and the theaters are handing out kill him signs.
Yeah, kill him with your floppy foam thumb.
Well, I guess the thumbs up would be the save him. Thumbs up would be save him. So actually,
yeah,
it's part of the solution, really.
Yeah, that's funny.
But hey, okay, so Gladiator II, this has been Ridley Scott's kind of his obsession over the last 20 some years. He said as much. Like as soon as the first one came out, he's like, I want to do another one. He got busy in the middle. Mm-hmm. They were struggling to come up with ideas. As we mentioned in our commentary track, there was the idea of bringing back Maximus as an avenging angel of sorts.
Yeah, that would lead all the way up to the Vietnam War.
Yeah. So thankfully, cooler heads prevailed, and that's not the version that happened.
Yeah.
Instead, we have this is roughly 15 years later. We've got Paul Mescal as Lucius, the son of Lucilla and Maximus.
I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but
it's not a spoiler because it's in the trailers, and I feel comfortable spoiling it because the movie doesn't even treat it like a spoiler, by the way.
Okay, yeah. If we're getting into it, yeah. I mean, that could be like the whole heart of the film, really.
Yeah,
but it's really not given a whole lot of impact.
It's treated as if it's everybody knows this.
Yeah, like we know,
which is weird. Yeah, but anyway, so we got Denzel Washington. I think Connie Nielsen's the only one who comes back, right, from the first.
No,
Derek Jacobi.
Yep.
So the most realistic thing about Gladiator 2 is that the old senators from the first movie are still in office 24 years later.
That's good. Yeah.
I gotta say, Brian, the movie ended, and I was like, I had fun. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It doesn't touch the first one. To me, this is what I said. I was like, if we treat the first Gladiator as an A+, this is like a B-.
You know what's so funny? I would say what you said with less enthusiasm while agreeing. Honestly, yeah, because I'm very glad we revisited the first one. Because in my memory, it was a good blockbuster. Mm-hmm. And rewatching it, I was like, no, this is a very rich, rich characters, rich story. The villain is very interesting and multidimensional. The hero is not just a brutish guy who we want to see kill someone. Like he's very rich and multidimensional and kind of sensitive, but also a great warrior. Like it's an excellent movie. I even thought, like, again, I hadn't watched it in like 10, 15 years maybe, but when we were done, I thought, you know what? I think this kind of goes into my, top 50 or something. Like I love this. This is really, really good. And so I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed watching the second one when I thought it didn't have the same sort of multi-dimensional aspects to the characters, or at least, I don't know, on the page or in the performances. I didn't find the story itself as compelling. It just felt like an impressive blockbuster. And that's satisfying in a certain sort of way. It is a spectacle, and it is really great watching it on the big screen. But I couldn't help but feel a little let down after being reminded how amazing the first one is, because I don't think it had the same nuances and elements and story and character that made the first one so a classic, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's funny. I agreed, but just said with a.
See, I think you know what's weird to me is having revisited this one as I mean twice in the last week. It steeled me to be like, look, the sequel's just not going to touch this. It can't.
Yeah,
and that put me in kind of the right headspace, where it was like, well, this is going to be more story in that world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that it helps that Maximus's story is done. So nothing can tarnish that.
Sort of. We can get into that in spoilers.
Yes, which I expect we will.
Yeah.
But like as a character, it's not, you know what I mean? I don't have to do like a hashtag not my Maximus thing, you know, like.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes. If he actually was in the film and then they screwed him up.
That's right. And it's like, well, I don't have any particular attachment to Lucius from the first film, so kind of a clean slate. I thought Paul Mescal did the best he could. I don't think he was bad. He's no Russell Crowe, but I've seen some people say he's really miscast or whatever. And I was like, I don't know. I thought he was all right. I didn't have a problem with him.
I wish. I don't know if it's.
I don't know who else in that age range would play this role any differently. I guess that was my thought. There's no Russell Crowe comparison today in my experience.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, then I'd say find one. You know, like. And by the way, I don't mean this as a ding on him, because I've heard he's a really great actor in all these other movies I've not seen. I believe it. I really do. But I feel like this character, the first act of this movie is almost beat for beat the first movie. There's a big battle,
right?
You know, like a family is lost and someone's sold into slavery, but there, all the things that I didn't remember and was delighted to find when I rewatched Gladiator, which we talked about this during the commentary. I mean, the movie opens with Russell Crowe looking at a bird and smiling, and it's a truly warm smile. And then his attention shifts to something else off screen and it all falls and he becomes a warrior again. And then you see he's about to go into battle. And like, there's a moment where he talks about his child who he hasn't seen and he's desperately wants to see with someone. And then just this warmth, like E.T.'s heart, you know, like just sort of like takes over his body for a split second thinking about his boy. And I just didn't get any of that out of his
I agree
performance.
with that.
He just was very flat and monotone and just was kind of serviceable to me, to be honest.
I think that goes to I think what you're saying is correct. I think it goes to what they were trying to do here. Let's be honest. They were trying to Force Awakens Gladiator.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And that was my thought throughout. I was like, oh, they're Force Awakensing this.
I've not heard that yet in anyone else's thing. And that is so spot on.
Right. And so it's like, well, you can't help but make these comparisons and, we have to like, he's with his wife in the beginning and, you know, they exchange rings. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, come on. Like,
yeah.
The movie's it's not called Happy Farmer. It's called Gladiator. So
Happy Farmer. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, we know this is what's going to happen, you know? So in a way, like I put myself in that space. I'm like, we're doing, you know, sort of a training wheels version of what was in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just put myself in the space of like, you know, okay, so this is the other thought. Sorry, I'm saying a bunch of different stuff. The other thought was, as I was watching, I was like, this is not Rome. This is like this is Westeros or something. You know, it's just it's just
explain that. That's
it's just
interesting.
fiction. You know, you have to treat it like a fantasy world because it doesn't in any way line up with what actually happened in history.
Right.
And I'm not using that as a ding, but also kind of, I mean, if you're like the twin, and they weren't even twins by the way, but the two brother emperors, they were real. Macronus, played by Denzel Washington, he was real. Like, these are real people.
Oh wow, I didn't even bother to look it up.
Yeah, I did a little research before, and then after I really dove in, and it's like, okay, well, they're just doing their own thing, right? So you have to, it's fantasy. So to me, that's what it was. When I say Force Awakens, that's what I mean. It's like, hey, here's what happened in the galaxy far, far away 30 years later.
Yeah, and it hits a lot of similar beats, but you have a new protagonist.
Exactly.
A lot of reference to the past.
Yeah, a lot, you know?
Yeah. You know, something that's kind of interesting. Oh, by the way, I do want to say I did like the Twin Emperors. They're a very different energy than Phoenix. And I liked that it was different, and they were kind of obnoxious, but felt volatile, which I think is a fun, different sort of take. I'm not saying, so not my point that I'm going to make now. I'm not saying I care about this, but we made a point of pointing out that in the first Gladiator, we're supposed to feel disgusted by the games,
right?
You know, watching these people battle it out. However, we've plunked down money for a ticket to watch these games ourselves, and
right.
And I made a case that I didn't feel like we were complicit because I think in the first, as an audience, because in the first movie, we're not kind of in the stands observing. We're with Maximus being thrust into a situation that's awful, and we want to see him survive. Right. And so we don't want this to happen. We're just going to see how an excellent warrior figures out how to survive through this.
Yeah.
I got to say, in this movie, I felt less like that, and did feel like it was a little bit more, dude, check out like the CGI rhinoceros gore this guy. You know, like it felt a little bit more like, let's just see how much spectacle we can throw at you and see, are you not entertained? And I'm not saying I care, but I'm just saying I didn't feel the same sort of feelings that I did with the first one, the point of view of the battles versus this one. And maybe it's because I didn't really feel like I was in this main character's point of view.
I think that right there, right? Like by the time Maximus is in the arena, I mean, we have gone through some shit with him.
Yeah.
Snot was spilled.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And so this, it does like a fast forward version of the first third of Gladiator.
Well put. Because I remember pointing this out. I really loved taking the time to show these gladiators in their sort of cage or their holding area or whatever, and then seeing the Colosseum and being like, oh my gosh, like I've never seen something that big. And then being led and seeing people banging on the cages, not knowing what they're about to enter. I mean, it's really in their point of view. And like, to your point, yes, it's fast forward version of that. So we're not quite getting a human perspective of what leading up to these battles.
And I think that speaks to what was going to be inevitable about a movie like this is you weren't going to replicate the feeling of that first movie. It was really singular.
Totally.
And so I think that's where I'm kind of like, well, I see what they're doing, and I'm tracking with it. The character beats for like like what is lacking in explication, I'm willing to take from implication and just roll with it. And even, I mean, fundamentally, it's like if the movie is called Gladiator, well, you've got to put your main character into that position, and it, when you really connect the dots, it is very like screenwritery of trying to get Lucius from point A to point B to point C.
Sure.
How does he end up as a gladiator?
Yeah.
Like all the how did his mother sent him away here, and then he ended up here, and you're like if you stop and think about it, it's like that's a lot.
Sure.
And the biggest thing to me Or actually, one other thought, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. My favorite character in the whole movie was General Acacius, played by Pedro Pascal.
Dude, 100% agree. He, in a weird way, well,
He's Maximus.
Yes. Okay. Yes. That was. I mean,
Yeah.
and from someone else's point of view, f that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
But he is Maximus.
Yeah.
You know, he's doing his job, and like he's conflicted, and I found him very interesting, and I almost wish there had been a little bit more with him and his interaction with some characters.
I think that there needed to be one more scene between him and Lucius.
100%. And that could have been maybe the beating heart for this movie that I was kind of missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was terrific. And you know, Denzel Washington, I think, is rightly being given a lot of accolades.
I mean, he's just so effortless at what he's doing here. It is so entertaining to watch.
He is having a blast.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that. I was like, this is not a role that Denzel gets to play often, but whenever he's a seedy sort, he really brings it, right? Like Training Day,
totally. But he's like kind of hard in that movie.
Yeah.
And in this, it's fun watching him just sort of be a little more flamboyant.
He's a trickster.
He's a trickster. He's giddy. Yeah. It's fun to watch.
He's true, and I think, but see, again, I think this is where it's kind of helpful because the movie does lean so heavily into the template of the first one. You expect him to be more of an Oliver Reed type, and they take some unexpected turns, you know.
Yeah.
And I found that effective.
Before, maybe we should get into spoilers in a minute.
Yeah, let's do it.
I do want to say one last thing with the battles themselves. A friend of mine said that it felt more like a video game this go around. And I kind of agree. I walked away thinking, in the first one, it really is like these two people are chained together. How the heck are we going to make this work? Or it's like, we've got this chariot coming toward us, but if we hold together and hold out our shields a certain way, we can avoid these sort of blades and then use the blade against the other person. And there's a lot of tactics employed and whatever. And in this one, there's a whole scene where the arena is flooded with water and there's like ships and sharks, and kind of in my head I was thinking this should have been the most amazing thing I've seen all year.
Yeah.
And like I've kind of forgotten about it.
That's a good point.
And I don't know if it's because the sharks didn't look very good or if it's like, and they fight monkeys in this one scene, and it's, I don't know, sort of almost maybe not unintentionally to what you were saying about it feeling like Westeros. I just felt like they're watching. It felt like a fantasy.
That was actually, that scene was what put me in that mind, because I'm like, this is a fantasy world. Yeah. Because I'm like, monkeys don't do that.
See, and that's kind of the problem. And by the way, they look, I'm not going to blame like the visual effects or anything like that, but I will say I kind of blame the director. I have a problem when they have CG animals in movies and they don't move like actual animals.
Yeah.
They give them extra articulation, or if they're going to like pounce, they give them this like little wind up or whatever that you would see in an animated movie. But in real life, animals don't actually do those extra movements. And then they inherently feel like fictional creatures to me. Even though that was a really scary scenario to be thrown in an arena with these like crazy angry apes,
Yeah. I would not want to be in that situation. I'd be that guy. I'd be like the old guy who's just like, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah, I felt so bad for that guy, but I also understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you want to get into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Spoilers.
Well, Zachy, I have feelings.
Okay.
If Lucius is Maximus's son, which I remember you saying is kind of implied in the first movie.
Well, I actually am firmly in the belief that it's not implied in the first movie. The movie goes out of its way to specifically say because at the very beginning of the movie, after the battle, Maximus is reunited with Lucilla, right? So it's clear they had a relationship at some point.
Yes, they
right?
have a past. Yeah.
Yeah. And she says, "Oh, my son is 8." And he says, "Oh, my son is also 8." And I feel like that is there very deliberately to be like, yeah, they're like, unless Maximus, who loved his wife so much, was screwing Lucilla at the same time.
Wait, so then how would that work? Because I mean, he would have to be cheating on his wife at that point.
Exactly.
But that's what when you were saying this movie doesn't hurt Maximus. I was like, well, kind of.
You have to, well, in the sense of like, yes.
He's like this noble, loving husband type in the first movie.
The first movie, I want to be very clear about this. When he says, husband to a father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, well, that only works if he doesn't have another son, or at least he doesn't know he has a son, right? You can read into it like at his last line is like, Lucius is safe, like, oh, he knows he's a son. That's all retcon, folks. That's not the movie itself. Is clearly showing that Maximus has formed a surrogate attachment to Lucius.
Totally.
Right. The first movie, there is nothing textually to tell you that Maximus is Lucius' father. You could imply it, I suppose, but I would argue, again, based on that exchange between Maximus and Lucilla at the beginning, they're very clearly saying that they were not together. Like, it's not,
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, to your point, there's something dodgy there.
Yeah.
The other thing is I don't think in terms of this movie, it hinges on Lucius being Maximus' son. It doesn't matter.
No, I don't think so.
Right? It would be, let me put it this way, it would be no less an impressive moment when Lucius dons Maximus's armor, whether he's his son or not.
100%. I completely agree.
Right? So that was an odd choice. Now, that being said, Ridley Scott, like from the jump, like from way back then, has been like, Lucius could be Maximus' son. He's been saying that all along.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he says some stupid shit too, because he says Deckard is a replicant, and I think that's bullshit. So whatever. I don't consider him the be all end all. But my only point is, I think it's a misread of your mandate that, oh, he has to be Maximus' son, because Maximus viewed him as a son.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's enough. That's all you need.
To me, that feels like pressure to make this movie connect to the first one.
Right.
So that was what I wish we had gotten more out of this movie. That's the opportunity you have with this new character. What's his story? His story is that he is the rightful heir to being emperor.
Which is more important. In terms of this story, that's what's important.
Yeah, and he's like kind of cast away like Moses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And lives this life and has a wife and she dies and then he has to come back and face his mother who sent him away. Like, that's meaty.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I just don't feel like we got the bite that I wanted.
Right. I agree with that. And I also think that if you're going to reveal that Lucius is Maximus' son, I think I was saying this earlier, you can't treat it as a thing that everybody knew but him. Like, everybody in the audience already knew, but he didn't.
Right. Yes.
You have to explain how that happened. I mean, I know how it happens, but
yeah.
Chronologically,
Yeah. It's like he, in a dire time, he was there for me, or you get some sort of little monologue, try to preserve his integrity a little bit, like
in some way. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So that's like a weird thing, and I'm kind of like, well, you just have to squint past it, to me at least,
Yeah.
Now, two things actually. You tell me, did you not feel like that the doctor character was maybe at one point intended to be Jaimin Hunsu?
Oh, interesting. I would have. I mean, the guy was fine, but that would have been great. Yeah.
Right. It felt like maybe it was written with that in mind, or maybe he didn't want to do it or something. I don't know. I had that sense.
That totally makes sense. And it would have made sense, at least in my memory, if he was a little older. I don't remember how old he looked, but
yeah, in the film, he's like, I was a gladiator after Maximus's time.
Yeah.
Right. But let's be honest. It would be very easy to be like, yeah, I knew Maximus. I mean, give me a break,
Yeah, that would have been great. That would have been a good tie.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The other thought that I had was killing Connie Nielsen felt excessive to me.
excessive, or for me at least, like lacking impact when there was the potential for a lot of impact.
Right.
Because it sort of was confusing too, where Lucius is kind of mad at her at one point,
Right.
and then he's
well,
just
he's
kind of
mad
like,
because she.
well, no, I
sent him
understand
away.
why he's mad. I just mean, and then
Yeah,
they kind
Brian.
of make up quickly.
It's because she sent him away, Brian. God.
I just felt this is, to me, like I've said this over and over. Like, this is what I wish the heart of the film was. And like him having to grapple with the information he's learning, him having to reconcile with his mom through these extraordinary circumstances. And then it might have meant a little bit more seeing her die like that in the ring, when he
Yes.
thinks that maybe they could like preserve their relationship or something, or he could save
Well,
her.
it's the same problem as with Acacius, right? Like I think that, again, man, all the stuff with Pedro Pascal throughout is great. Pedro Pascal in the arena where he's like pleading with him,
Great. Yes.
so good. He's like, do what you will, but know that I love your mother and I loved your father. That's great, man.
That's good stuff. Yep.
Right. But the Lucius is like, I just want General Acacius, right? That's his whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Acacius is killed, he's like, is this how Rome treats its emperors? Treats its heroes, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
How Rome treats its heroes. I think that's a great moment,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I needed to see that turn a little more.
Me too. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's a great idea. That's my point. That's a great idea that they just didn't care to spend time on.
Yeah. So that was kind of a shame, but it was totally, like, literally, I at that scene when Acacius is in the arena, I leaned over to Hamza. I'm like, Acacius is Maximus.
What did he say?
He was laughing because I was like, he's the general who became the gladiator.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that all was good. Actually, here's the other thought I had. I started this movie being like, I know Lucius is not going to die.
Mm.
That was the other. I was like that element of danger doesn't exist.
Interesting. I don't know that I thought about it, to be honest, but yeah.
I was like, they played the death card already.
Yeah.
In the first one, right? And this one, after, he gets knocked out, and then they set up the afterlife stuff so that you're like, okay, that's part of the visual vernacular of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that in the previous one. And what they're trying to do is be like, oh, just like Maximus saw the afterlife, and it's like, oh, that might happen to him. And I was like, okay, well, I know for certain Lucius doesn't die in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even saying that in a bad way, but viewed through that lens, I was like, okay, well, that means everyone else is expendable.
Yeah.
Because I know Lucius is going to make it to the end.
Interesting.
I don't know.
That's funny.
This is just how my brain works.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, with regards to the whole turn with Denzel at the end, I think him just straight up becoming a black hat was fun to watch because Denzel is so compelling. But it did feel abrupt.
Yeah, I'm really happy. Yes, that was my feeling, and I was curious how you were going to finish that thought.
Yeah,
I was thinking, I could have used a little bit more of his character, meaning like how he treats people, or if he's, maybe it's meant to be sort of a twist a little bit, that he's kind of this Machiavellian person.
Yes,
trying to get.
I don't know how much of a twist it is. He's like that from the start.
Well, he wants to be a player, you know what I mean? And like,
yes.
I didn't realize exactly what, or at least my memory of it from like a week ago.
Yeah.
Set up. It came fast, although I enjoyed that. I think there was a moment somewhere in the middle where I felt like the movie kind of kicked into gear a little bit, maybe introducing that stuff, and he takes over that guy's house, and
that's right.
Turning the brothers on one another. That I really dug all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, I think felt a little, that level of scheming felt like it came fast.
He has the scene with Connie Nielsen where he's like, I was the slave of Marcus Aurelius or something to that effect, right? Yeah. He's like, here's the brand I had. And he bears the malice towards his family as a result of that. But the confusion I had is that in the mythology of these films, Marcus Aurelius is portrayed as a decent guy.
Right.
Right. Even though I said in our commentary, I'm like, well, I don't know, he's kind of a bad guy, if you really look at it.
Right.
But the movie is like, this is the heir of Marcus Aurelius. We're trying to restore that.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to, you know what I mean? You need to get into a little more, like, what happened to Macrinus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? There's, and all it would have taken is like a monologue
Totally.
by Denzel Washington.
Totally.
Like, we don't need a flashback or whatever. Just tell us what happened.
I would have loved that.
Yeah. So that's the weird thing. And Ridley Scott has said that there's some extended version that he wants to do at some point. So, I mean, we'll see, But I suspect that such an extended cut would hit these specific areas that you and I are talking about.
Yeah. So now I'm realizing, I guess, the Cliff Notes version is that it all leads to interesting things and outcomes, but I was missing the setups, having a little bit deeper of setups for all of it and for all these people.
Yeah.
Like the movie just didn't seem interested, or like you said, it was kind of on fast forward for the first half a little bit. But that stuff, that's why I'm here. That's what I love about the first Gladiator is it's not just a spectacle. It's a soulful spectacle.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think what I've said all along is Gladiator did not need a sequel.
Yeah, sure.
And I would say, having watched Gladiator II, well, I stand by that. I don't think Gladiator needs a sequel, But having watched the second one, I will say it ended, and I had enjoyed myself, and I did not mind going back to this specific world. And I think had Ridley Scott not been involved, I would have not been interested at all. But for me, what interested me was this was something that was a passion project for Ridley Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that even now he's just very skilled at pulling off these types of spectacles.
Yeah, I was wondering how different it would look just technology wise.
Yeah.
The leaps from 2000 and just I don't know how much like location shooting and like that kind of thing we would sense. And I have to say I was pretty satisfied. I thought it did look, similar in visually to the first one, which was what I was hoping for.
Yeah. I actually really liked the way the movie starts with that like kind of pseudo animated opening showing scenes from the first. Just as like, again, total member berries. But
oh yeah.
But I loved the like vaguely dreamlike way it depicted it, and it's like, hey, I don't know, it just worked for me. It was a cool way to sort of on ramp into this movie. That's all.
I totally agree. Actually, I thought the same thing.
One major, we haven't discussed this at all, but one major absence, probably an absence almost as important as not having Russell Crowe, is that of Hans Zimmer.
Yes.
Right. So we hear Harry Gregson Williams does an entirely serviceable job, and he is not a bad composer at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this score is not bad. It's a decent score.
Yeah.
And we see we hear these thematic, motifs that were from the previous film, but it's not Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like an Indiana Jones movie that John Williams doesn't do the score to,
Yeah, totally.
So I think that is another very glaring thing that you feel its absence.
Yeah, you miss it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's just funny because I completely agree with you on all this stuff, but I just I have to say I stand by everything I said. I do feel like it is disappointing standing next to the first one.
Yeah.
But this one is a grand spectacle, unlike much we get these days.
Yes.
Having it's not in space, it's not in some fantasy world. People aren't flying. It's just like a sword and sandals flick on a scale that we don't see very often, and that is impressive to look at.
I agree, and that if for nothing else, that makes me glad that people are turning up to see it, because I'd like to see this type of effort be rewarded. This sort of old school approach to storytelling.
Totally agree. I mean, you said it in the commentary that the first one came out in May.
Yeah.
And that's just a movie like that wouldn't come out in May these days. And I was like, oh, but I want them to.
That's right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing something like this succeed because I want that too.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at on Gladiator 2. Just to circle back to what I was saying at the start, again, if we think of the first Gladiator as an A plus, or that set the bar, this is a B minus.
Yeah.
I think it's very watchable. I think it has a lot of great moments. It doesn't hit any of the highs, I don't think, that the first Gladiator does, but I think it's an enjoyable 2.5 hours.
Yeah, totally.
Well, there we go. Maybe you disagree with either me or Brian. In which case, hey, let us know. You can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast. We also have a Patreon, Brian.
Yes, at patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast. You can find all of our past commentaries and every episode we do and future commentary to come absolutely ad-free for only $5 a month. So we do, of course, we have the show still available on our old feed, and it's filled with advertisements, and we're thankful for them, and we're thankful for anybody who wants to listen to it that way. But we just wanted to offer an option that was a little bit cleaner of a listening experience, ad-free for only $5 a month at patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast.
There you go. And if you're looking for me online, you can find me on social media at Zacky's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. I'm no longer posting on Twitter, but I am on Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram, etc. So you can find me there. And of course, look for my work at the San Francisco Chronicle. I've got coming up, I got a review of Star Wars Skeleton Crew.
Ooh, you've seen it?
I have not seen it yet. I have the screener though, and
great.
It will be dropping very shortly, that review. And of course, I have a review of Watchmen Chapter 2 up at IGN, which I've really enjoyed this animated movie, Brian.
Wait, what is this?
So it's a 2-part animated movie. It's adapted by J. Michael Straczynski. He of Babylon 5 and Real Ghostbusters, etc. And it's a true to the comic adaptation in 2 parts. So you put it together, it's like a 3-hour version of the Watchmen story. That's different from Snyder's movie.
Okay, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, really well done. You've got Titus Welliver as the voice of Rorschach. And Matthew Reese is Night Owl. Katie Sackhoff is Silk Spectre. And again, I feel like the mission statement was like to try to be as truer to the comic than the film was. And there's this great animation style that evokes the line work by Dave Gibbons, who drew the comic. Really, I enjoyed it a lot.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's a good one. I also saw a show on Showtime called The Agency, which is you can read my review for that at The Wrap. That stars Michael Fassbender and Jeffrey Wright and Richard Gere, and with a cast like that, you'd think an espionage series would be amazing, but unfortunately, this one didn't do much for me.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, so read my review there. What about you, Brian?
Well, as always, episodes I've written of Puppy Dog Pals and Young Jedi Adventures are available on Disney Plus. And I just put the Christmas tree up, and I have a little Nubs action figure ornament that I ordered. Nice. And I love seeing him sitting there on my tree.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
So with that, on behalf of my partner Brian Hall, my name is Zaki Hassan. This has been Movie Film 305. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, folks.
Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Enjoy the show. Zachy